All right, man, peace. So I did a video a couple of weeks ago pertaining to the young star quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Mr. Dak Prescott. I basically implied that, in my view, Jerry Jones and the coaching staff of the Dallas Cowboys were letting Dak Prescott know that he's on the clock. Because after his first two seasons, they're expecting him to metamorphosize into a star, despite the fact that they've clearly hamstrung him by degrading his receiving core, first in letting go of Des Bryant, and they also let go of their third best receiver, and neither one of those receivers have particularly been replaced by anyone that I consider to be viable, but we'll find out. Maybe we'll learn a lot about Dak Prescott in this up-and-coming NFL season, and he'll be able to elevate his receiving core. Jerry Jones has recently made statements declaring that they've done their best to make Dak Prescott comfortable by installing many plays that he used to run while in college at Mississippi State. So what is Jerry Jones saying? What is he confirming? In my view, he's confirming what I alleged in the previous video that I did about Dak Prescott, that being that he's on the clock. And it would not surprise me if the Cowboys hit the panic button through 8 or 9 games, if the Cowboys are 4-4 or 4-5. Would not shock me at all, especially if Ezekiel Elliott is not able to have the ground game that they expect him to have this season, because Ezekiel's going to have to run for at least 1,600 plus yards for them to have a chance of making the playoffs. They do not want to have to count on Dak, but if need be, they're trying to create the parameters where they can make him the fall guy. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
We're still keeping up with the Joneses, guys. Jerry playing analyst when it comes to his signal caller. Please take a listen.
He just seems to have the field at his beckon, and of course he can always use that athletic ability that he's got and that size to tuck it up and run. We've put in offense that complement his skills. We've put in offense that complements what he did at Mississippi State. That is in vogue right now in college, and you're seeing it drift up to the NFL. The pass option type plays, all of those things are going to make him a better quarterback. We've done what we should be doing, and that's put an offense together that is friendly to him.
You know you love that accent. All right, Big Jerry says the Cowboys system is perfect for Dak Prescott. Max, what's he really saying here?
Don't look at me. I did what I was supposed to do.
Ding. That's basically all Jerry Jones is saying. That's why I made the video about this topic a couple of weeks ago, because I saw it in the tea leaves that Jerry Jones is setting Dak Prescott up. This is a make or break season for Dak Prescott. Many of the Dallas Cowboy fans got upset with me in the comments. They said that I was utilizing quote unquote clickbait. No, sir. I'm just utilizing my three-dimensional thought process. I can see things down the line. I can see things down the road. Dak Prescott is going to have a superlative season in order to keep his job.
Let me say this. A lot of times Jerry Jones' name comes up, and I'm taking shots, basically, right? They're fair. It's fair criticism, I believe. It's my opinion. But it sounds like I'm taking shots, and I'm anti-Jerry Jones. And this is easy in this business to confuse things. There are things about Jerry Jones that I like. Stephen A., as much as it's self-aggrandizing and strokes his ego, and everyone knows he needs that and all these things, he puts himself out there.
Well, I think that all great men need their quote-unquote ego stroked. I think that all great men like to be acknowledged. They like to be told that their exploits are worthy of acclaim. I don't think that that's uncommon.
He does. I mean, he exposes himself to this kind of criticism all the time. Thank God for Jerry Jones, for us, right? But what is he saying really here? He's exposed. Like, we'll talk about him next week on after his next weekly appearance. I'm sure he'll give us stuff to chew on. He's saying, drafted all the offensive linemen, we got an elite running back, we're installing an offense that's right for him. If he doesn't get it done, I have done my job. Don't look at me. It's not my responsibility.
And beyond that, not only is he telling the Dallas Cowboy fan base, don't look at me, he's also telling Dak Prescott, dude, this is your third season. We need you to be able to throw the football in some way to make our offense move. Last season, you had a pedestrian season. You had the excuse that Ezekiel Elliott missed 6 games. You're not going to have any excuses this season, bro. That's all Jerry Jones is saying. That is why I saw already that they're setting Dak Prescott up.
Kind of passing the buck.
But isn't that fair? He has.
I agree.
What does fairness have to do with it, Molly Karam? The Dallas Cowboys are the most lucrative franchise in all of sports on the entire planet.
Prescott is in a good position, except, as Stephen A. might tell you, Stephen A., what does he not have so many of? He's got the line, he's got the running back, but...
Here's the reality. He doesn't have that many weapons at the wideout spot, but this is the biggest thing that I peeled from what Jerry Jones was saying. Jerry Jones, basically, in my opinion, was disrespecting Dak Prescott. Because if this were Tony Romo, Jerry Jones would be talking about Tony Romo and Tony Romo's ability. In Dak Prescott, he's talking about the pieces that we have around him. You know, it's...
Yes, Stephen A. Smith. In other words, what is he saying? He's saying that Dak Prescott is a game manager. He's saying that despite the fact that Tony Romo would customarily lead the Cowboys to 8-8 seasons, that he could stretch the field. He brought excitement. He was box office. That's what Jerry Jones liked. Jerry really wishes that Tony Romo was about 10 years younger and he could bring him back onto this Dallas Cowboys team. Because I think that Jerry is far more confident that Tony Romo could elevate the receivers around him than he is that Dak Prescott can. I don't think that Jerry has much confidence in Dak Prescott.
It's Dak Prescott friendly. He needs this in order to be effective. We can't just look at his abilities or what have you. We're thinking about Ezekiel Elliott. We're thinking about this stout offensive line. You got Tyron Smith. He's returning. He started 13 games last year, missed 3. You got Zach Martin. He started 13 games, all 16 games. You got Travis Frederick. He started all 16 games. La'el Collins. He started 16 games. All of these dudes are returning, and 3 of them that I mentioned were Pro Bowlers. This is arguably the best offensive line in football. Some people would say the Eagles. Some people would look at the Steelers and maybe a couple of others. They'll throw them in the...
Green Bay, Oakland as well. I think that the days of the supremely dominant Dallas Cowboys offensive line have come and gone. I think they reached their peak from about 2014 to 2016. I don't think that they're going to be as dominant as they were during that time period.
In the conversation, but the Dallas Cowboys are the creme de la creme.
When healthy, that's the best
When healthy, right? So what you have is a situation where we're talking about a guy in Dak Prescott. What did he do at Mississippi State? What he did was he had a stout offensive line. They ran the football. They played a power game or whatever. He threw when he needed to throw, et cetera, et cetera.
People forget that through the first 7 or 8 games in Dak Prescott's last year at Mississippi State, he was the front runner for the Heisman Trophy.
Jerry Jones is saying we're leaning on that philosophy, the ingredient to that success. This is the direction that we're going in now. The flip side to all of that is that's not usually Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, even when he's built something, doesn't just talk about those things. He has a particular player that he raves about, and it has almost always been Tony Romo. He loves this man. That was like an adopted son to him, okay? We know this. The only person that's in a conversation to the level that Tony Romo was Jason Garrett, Mr. Puppet himself. So the bottom line is, when you look at the Dallas Cowboys right now, the fact that Jerry Jones is bloviating to the degree that he is speaks about the offensive line, speaks about Ezekiel Elliott. You got to remember, he's also on record talking about this is the best defense he's had, which makes no sense whatsoever because there's 3 Super Bowl champions that had a better defense than the one he's looking at. But he's talking about how great this defense is supposed to be.
Right, but Stephen A. Smith, come on. Jerry Jones is not just an NFL owner extraordinaire. He's also a master promoter. In the same way, Bob Arum, when he used to promote Floyd Mayweather, he said that Floyd Mayweather was the greatest fighter that he ever promoted. And he promoted Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard, Floyd Mayweather. And then when Floyd Mayweather left him, it was Manny Pacquiao who was the greatest fighter that he ever promoted. And then when Pacquiao finally left him and when he started to fall off, now it's Vasily Lomachenko. Vasily Lomachenko is the greatest fighter that he's ever promoted. Bob Arum is not just in the ownership business for the NFL. He's also in the promotion business for himself.
He's basically saying, you know what, Dak, just do your job, follow the plan, and we'll be all right, as opposed to appreciating what Dak Prescott brings to the table.
No, he's not really saying that. He's saying, Dak Prescott, we've set everything up for you to make it easy. You don't have to do too much thinking. If you fuck this up, you're out of here.
How great it could potentially be? This is a legitimate question. And I'm not sure what the answer is. That's why I'm asking. How much do you think that's because, on the one hand, of Jerry Jones' relationship with Tony Romo?
Yeah, a lot.
Or on the other, the fact that Tony Romo, I think of Brett Favre, I think of quarterbacks who make things happen. Those guys who give you the sense that they're big playmakers are oftentimes more adored by the media and therefore maybe even by an owner like Jerry Jones than a game manager. Tom Brady was not as celebrated early in his career, and Dak Prescott is more cut from that cloth.
Let me be very, very clear about what I'm about to say, because Jerry Jones does not have that argument, because there was a young Troy Aikman that he was willing to invest in, and he delivered 3 Super Bowl championships. So it ain't about youth, okay? It's about who Jerry Jones has his preferences for. Jerry Jones relented to Dak Prescott for 2 reasons and 2 reasons only. The health of Tony Romo and the fact that Dak Prescott had such a breakout rookie season that Jerry Jones had no choice. Even when Dak Prescott was killing it, just running roughshod over everybody, and the Dallas Cowboys looked like the best team in football, even though I swore to the world they wouldn't win a playoff game, and I was right. The bottom line is that Dak Prescott was flat out balling, and every single week, Jerry Jones, it was like literally going to the dentist and pulling teeth to get him to be complimentary about Dak Prescott.
I agree with you, Stephen A. Smith, but you also have to understand, not only does Jerry Jones have a very close professional relationship with Tony Romo, he also has a very close personal relationship with Tony Romo. He's almost like an adopted son. That's totally different from Dak Prescott.
Because of Tony Romo. If Tony Romo were healthy.
I will say this, though. Jerry Jones was talking up Dak Prescott in the preseason of his rookie campaign. He was talking about how great Dak Prescott looked all throughout minicamp, all throughout the preseason, so that when Tony Romo finally got hurt, I believe he got hurt in a preseason game against Seattle, and Dak Prescott stepped in, not only Jerry Jones but also the Cowboys coaching staff showed a lot of confidence in Dak. But, you know, Dak Prescott kind of has become the rebound guy in the relationship. Jerry Jones and the Cowboys were in a long-term relationship with Tony Romo, and he was never able or willing to bring them to the altar. Dak Prescott is the new guy that they had all the positive energy for early. And it seems like they're starting to get tired of Dak right now. They want that old thing back.
Jerry Jones would have found a way for Dak Prescott to be right back on the bench.
100%. And you know when he did have his back? When he backed up his stance on players must stand in the anthem. That's when Jerry was ready to praise Dak.
But there are...
Well, Jerry was ready to praise Dak for a long time before that. And once again, that's a very unfair statement. And this is why I like to bring these type of comments to brothers' attention. Because the so-called black man is under attack in a myriad of ways. And a lot of times, brothers don't understand how they get attacked subconsciously and subliminally by the liberal portion of the mainstream media, even at this point, the liberal sports media. Who is Malik Karam to assert or assess Dak Prescott's comment about the Colin Kaepernick protest and how it relates to his relationship with Jerry Jones when he was stating that 2 years ago? What you'll notice if you pay very close attention is that there is an incessant need amongst the liberal aspect of the mainstream media and also the so-called liberal blacks and so-called pro-blacks to assert that whenever a so-called black man is against any form of discordianism, it's because he's the white man's Negro or he's a sellout or what have you. It has to be because he's seeking the approval of the so-called white majority, when, as I've told you, brothers, over and over again, it's normally actually the liberal blacks who sit at the feet of the liberal Caucasian, learn from them, and then propagate the ideology that they're taught. To be quite frank with you, what people like Malik Karam say when she says what she just said is just as racist, quote unquote, and denigrating towards so-called black men as any overt racism can be. Because really what she's alleging is that Dak Prescott has to be a sellout in order to say what he's saying, or that he cannot be intelligent enough to have his own thoughts. He has to be puppeting or mimicking the thoughts of Jerry Jones.
Or I hear you. I'm not disagreeing with that part of it. I just think of quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, Alex Smith. I mentioned Tom Brady earlier in his career, although he was on such a great team that he was winning, so he had that around him, in the playoffs. But generally, game manager quarterbacks, the guys who don't make mistakes more than make things happen with
No, I get what you're saying.
throws.
Like Alex Smith isn't a sexy guy.
That's right. And Dak is more the kind of guy who's seen, and because those kind of guys, those game managers, it feels
They're
like
not
they
as
need
exciting.
more around them. But they also sometimes win Super Bowls. But a personality like Jerry Jones is going to be more drawn to the Tony Romo
The
kind of
gunslinger.
quarterback.
Right, because he's a promoter. He's not just an owner. He's an NFL promoter. And what that really does is that calls to my remembrance the reason why Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson fell out. What the Dallas Cowboys need is what the U.S. government allegedly has, which is a form of checks and balances. If the Cowboys had a form of checks and balances, they most likely would have been far more successful in the playoffs over the last 20 years or so than they have been. They may have even won a couple of more Super Bowls than they have, because Jerry Jones is more like a tyrant than someone who presides over the entire organization. When you preside over something, that means that you allow others to advise you who may have a more informed perspective than you have. When you act in a dictatorial manner, sometimes you lose scope because you cannot know everything. You can't understand everything from every perspective because you're just a human being. So Jerry Jones wants to be the GM, the owner, and the coach. And that stops his team from being as successful as they should be.
You're being entirely too cerebral with this. Tony Romo is a favorite son of Jerry Jones.
I agree, sir.
It's really that simple. And I'm not saying, listen, Tony Romo could play. Didn't win any damn thing, but he could play. And he's a fabulous sports analyst. Great personality, the whole bit. If you meet him,
Great on the games.
it's unbelievable. Okay, he's great. But the fact is, Jerry Jones had a strong level of affection for this guy. And he wore it on his sleeve never more than when Dak Prescott was balling, because every week that Dak Prescott showed out, Jerry Jones had
I
mixed
get what you're
emotions
saying.
and was
I
not
remember
happy
we used
about
to
it.
joke on the show, you'd call him the prodigal son. But to Max's argument, that still Tony has more of that big arm, that gunslinger,
And his
that
personality
kind of
matches.
he takes shots
Time out.
versus
Time out,
the
Joe.
guy that might not throw the picks but is a safer quarterback. Like, do you, that,
I'm sorry, you don't see Dak Prescott's arm?
Yeah,
You don't see that arm on that brother?
hold on.
it's not like that.
Tony
though.
Romo's
It's not like Tony.
You have to look at the
No.
relationship
Really?
between
Really?
Jerry.
No,
you have to
you're
look at the
wrong.
relationship between Jerry and
You think
I think that Dak Prescott has an arm just as good as Tony Romo's. I just don't think that he's as accurate throwing the football down the field as Tony Romo was.
Dak has a better arm than Tony?
I don't think it's a worse arm than Tony. The fact of the matter is think about the deep threats that the Dallas Cowboys have had available to them. They've been non-existent. We haven't
We
seen
don't have
Tony
time
Romo
to
with this
do this.
strong
Let
arm
us finish up.
compared to Dak Prescott.
You're both not. It's yes, there's that kind of quarterback, but the other kind of quarterback tends to also have the personality to match. That would seem to me to appeal to Jerry Jones. Tony Romo's personality, which makes him such a great analyst on TV, matches his style of play. That would appeal to Jerry Jones. I don't know that Dak Prescott's ever going to be a TV analyst like Tony Romo, and he plays that
But you
way.
act like Dak Prescott's some recluse. This is living.
I agree. Dak Prescott has shown more often than not that he has a very vivacious personality. For people who understand what's been going on with him over the past few days, he's certainly not shy. That's for damn sure.
Living in a hole or something. He's got a great personality.
I'm
We
not
talk
saying,
about.
I'm talking about the kind of larger-than-life personality that would draw a guy like Jerry Jones.
Unfortunately,
was
we're
larger
out
in
of
life
time.
from the time he fumbled against Seattle in the playoffs.
Okay.
That's when the personality
Let's all
was
stay focused.
No disrespect to Tony.
All
who I
right.
love.
We're going to keep it moving here on First Take for you all.
Well, anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see what happens with Dak Prescott. But once again, I have little doubt that the clock is ticking on Dak Prescott if he does not have an exemplary performance for the duration of this up-and-coming NFL season. So peace.